Hi, I'm Christine Tulley. I'm a senior writing coach at Defend and Publish, and this is episode 5 on part of our February series on joyful academic writing. Episode 5 is all about making your writing an event. So, one of the things I started thinking about when I tried to imagine how how academic writing could be thought of as joyful and fun in the way that I like to think of the way that I do it, where I get a sense of satisfaction, I enjoy doing it. Yes, I'm working under the same pressures as many academics to publish and meet deadlines and things like that, but I do enjoy the process. And I try to think about what are 4 things that I do that help that to happen. One of these is making writing an event. So, one of the interviews that I've done about my writing process was with a podcast called Rhetoricity. We'll link to it in the show notes. And I talk about how I treat my writing sessions as a hot date. So, maybe a nerdy hot date, but a hot date nonetheless. And what I do is I talked about going to the library. I know in my podcast, the previous podcast episodes, but the other part of it is a little bit about the buildup. So, for example, I make sure that I get one of those really fancy $5 cup of coffees, and I do that, pick that up on the way to the library. I can only have that fancy coffee unless I'm going to the library to go to a writing session. So that's something to look forward to. Another thing that I do to make it an event is that I always play certain music when I'm on my way to go to the library. And so I've actually had some discussions about this on Twitter. And I think of this as pre-gaming for my writing. And, maybe, if you were a college student back in the day, you might have, done some pre-gaming before you went to a football game or to, some other event. And, I think about it in that way where I'm getting my nice coffee. I'm playing some good music to get me in that writing mode to get into the library. And, that those 2 things together already put me in the right frame of mind when I'm driving to work. So I'm not thinking about, oh, well, I'm going to panic about not getting my, some parts of my writing done. I'm thinking about it as I'm on my way to my writing session. What can I do to ritualize that, but also make it pleasurable? So, good coffee, good music. And then third, I also go to the library, and that's something that I've been able to do post-pandemic to get back in there because my campus has opened back up again. And so part of it, I think right now is that I'm very relieved and grateful that I'm able to write in the library again after 9 months of not being able to. But the other part about that is I am going somewhere. I write in the library a lot. So everybody in our library, a little shout out to the University of Findlay, but everybody in our library, I mean, because I come in there all the time to do these writing sessions, they know what I'm doing. So I say hello to the same people. I go up to the same second floor and I look around for a good spot to write. Sometimes it's a big table. Sometimes it's by a window or in a study carrel. So I can have a little bit of variety up there. But that's part of making an event. It is a ritual, but I try to do these very pleasurable things to make it more interesting for me to click into, as I like to describe it when I get started to write. So let's think about what that might look like in a couple of different scenarios, because I understand that's certainly not going to be the same for everybody. For those of you that are doing shelter in place, that's tough. You got to write at home. And I've had to do that. I know we've done some things with Defend and Publish in some of the webinars where I've showed my pre-COVID writing space and my post-COVID writing space, which is our dining room, which is a total mess. So is that my favorite place to write? No. But what I do is I try to replicate it as much as possible. And so I basically developed a backup routine to make writing an event for me there. So I do have, I don't even know how to describe these, but it's like a Keurig latte. So it's like a fancier pod for my coffee that I will use when I'm going to have to write at home and have a writing session. So again, I try to get that, fancy coffee vibe. I try to do that. Another thing that I do is, even though I'm not playing a playlist when I'm getting ready to go to work, I do have certain music that I listen to. I kind of like lo-fi music without any words. And that's been very helpful that, again, I'm only using that when I'm doing a writing session in my dining room. So there's a lot of ways to think about this. One way that you could do it, and I know that we talked about in January about the priority project, thinking about your main project you're working on and trying to get it done, is you might think about things that are associated with that project that could help you make writing an event. So are there certain parts of that project that maybe there's certain music that would be useful to listen to, or maybe something that you could do on the way to think through some of your problems. So maybe you might decide, okay, I'm going to take a walk around the block before I start working at home, or I'm going to think through some of these things, or spend 10 minutes doing some free writing before I get into my writing project. The idea, though, too, is to think about that writing as something that would be just as immovable as other things on your schedule. So, teaching or going to a meeting or something like that. And thinking of writing as an event, there's so many other things that you can do to celebrate it. You can use really nice pens. You can reward yourself with, some great screensaver. You can use some fun technology tools. Technology tools is something I'll talk about later this month, but you can find tools that make this more pleasurable. For example, I know somebody that just started using Trello boards as a way to kind of to keep track of a writing project, and they really like it because they can color code the boards, and there's kind of the fun of playing around with that. And so they work on that Trello board as the closing of a writing session. So they basically use the fun playing with Trello as the way to make writing an event where they close it out. Another way you might think about making your writing joyful is to think about your writing place and see if there's something that you can do to make it a little bit more pleasurable. One interesting idea I just heard about on another podcast was thinking about standing up when you're doing some creative work. And the argument was that in the age of Zoom, we're all sitting down, and that's going to make you not as productive as you possibly could be. So I do think there's something to this. And I know that I do have one of those little tabletop standing desks. So if you just look at one on Amazon, they're pretty cheap. I think I got mine for maybe $15, but basically it looks like a little TV tray that sits on top of your desk, and you can put your laptop on top of that. I know that I've actually used that more often, especially if I know if I've been in, say, 3 or 4 Zooms, with a class and then a meeting, particularly when the shelter-in-place restrictions in Ohio, where I am, were a little bit more strict. That was a really useful tool to have, just because it did give you the physical variety. Writing is certainly hard, on your body to sit there for a long time. So if it's the sitting part that's bothering you, that might be a way to make writing a little bit more pleasurable for you. Another thing you might think about is changing your chair if you're going to actually sit somewhere to do some writing. So certainly in the library, I've been known to do this to find just the right chair at the height that I want. So I'll swap out one for another one, but you might do this in your house as well. So in your writing space, you might be sitting on a kitchen chair out of necessity because that's where you're working, you're in the kitchen, but maybe during your writing session, you go and get that chair that you think you might like a little bit better. It's a little bit of a hassle, but again, it's a mental click into your writing, and it gives you something else to look forward to, that you actually can sit in a more comfortable chair to do your writing. I definitely know people that, light a scented candle when they start writing. I know other people that, especially during the age of COVID, I just had a discussion with a writing group about this, where many of them will get dressed to write like it's an event, not sitting in sweatpants to do it. So there's lots of little tricks and tips. I don't think that there is any right answer for any of these, but just thinking about your writing space and not trying to get the same old space to work this time might be a way to make your writing a little bit more joyful. Maybe another point that would be helpful is to write on a Post-it what your thesis is for your project and have that nearby as part of your writing space. So if you're looking around, especially when I write at home, I look around and see, oh, there's that big pile of, papers that I didn't do anything with. There's a laundry basket I didn't do anything with. Seeing that could maybe bring you back into your writing project and remember what you're doing it for. So hopefully those suggestions are useful in rethinking that writing space and making it a little bit more joyful. You might even think, again, getting back to a writing music playlist, you might even think about having a playlist that you play at home as you're writing, because certainly you can play that a little bit louder than in the library if you're planning to do that. I encourage you to check out all of our podcasts at Defend and Publish at Podcasts if you want to see our previous episodes from January about resetting your writing. And also, I'd encourage you that if you look at defendandpublish.com, you can see a link to a free 30-minute consultation. There's a sign-up sheet on there. And if you're interested in getting some feedback on a specific writing problem, you can get some advice in 30 minutes, maybe a way to reset your writing space, or maybe you need some help thinking through a specific problem. But I encourage you to take advantage of it because there's no commitment and no strings attached. So hopefully that's something that might help you on your writing journey. We're looking forward to talking to you next week about another way you can make your academic writing joyful, and happy writing.